Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of A Slice of History with the Butterfly Princess. This week I'm reading you an article from the February 2025 edition of the BBC History magazine. This article this week has been written by Michael Wood, who is a Professor of Public History at the University of Manchester, and he's written an article about the magic of filming in historic locations. Nothing matches with being with Alexander the Great on foot in the Hindu Kush. At our little film company, Mayo Vision, we recently took the decision to digest all the rushes of our key films so that we could dispose of hundreds of boxes of tape that had been kept in storage, throwing out stuff we thought we would never need again. There were even cans of 16mm films that we can't even play anymore. Having given our Steinbeck flatbed editing suite to a film school years ago, we've been making films for over 40 years, so unsurprisingly, looking through all the material over the past few weeks, the office became a kind of memory room. I have always been a great believer in filming in locations where things actually happened in history really matters. Nothing quite matches being with Alexander the Great on foot in the Hindu Kush, hot sweet black tea and coarse bitter bread in the early morning light, shared with Northern Alliance gunmen. On visiting Spain, Tibet, frozen in time at the moment of the sack of 1693, the dead still lying in tattered clothes in their caves, or watching dawnbreak over the festival at 5,000 meters in the Peruvian Andes, long congos of dancers snaking down from the rituals at the glacier. Even in the UK, there were moments made timeless by location. Here was footage of the last glover working by hand in Worcestershire only 25 years ago, and of the last wool staple trading centre in Britain at Thames, Oxfordshire, which has closed since we made our films on Shakespeare, whose father was a glover and wool blogger middleman. The fabric of times indeed. In history, for me, the living connection really adds substance to the whole thing if you make the effort to seek it out. Our journeys in the lost city of the icing in the Peruvian jungles, for example, involved a 3-day march on foot with pack animals carrying the camera gear, and all for a single extended travel sequence, dramatic though it was. Where we enjoyed the unforgettable experience of camping out under the forest canopy in the crisis of scarlet macros along the overgrown platforms of the last eye in the city to fall to the Spanish in 1572. While shifting through the rushes, we often stumbled on sequences that never made the shows as broadcast. A memorable example was filmed outside the Icing capital, Cusco. Here in ancient times, invisible sacred lines extending out into the hills in the direction of each of the rocks, cave springs. After the conquest of the Spanish Inquisition, after the conquest, the Spanish were anxious to suppress local cults and destroy the Indigenous peoples' alliances to their old world and its religion, but the site survived into the 21st century, only a short physical distance, but a world away millennia from the tourist shops and bars in Cusco. One was a sacred spring at a country house in which was kept the mummified body of a wife of a great who ruled between 1438 and 1471, a place then intimately associated with memories of the height of the Iceland Empire. To our surprise, the horse was still standing. Behind the crumbling facade of the lake were characteristic stone doors and Iceland imperial period. The estate had been abandoned, the house boarded up, but at the back of the garden, the prominent ice into shrine still stood. A simple great rock with a latter Spanish chapel perched on top. At the base of the rock was a cave from which a sacred spring bubbled. By the entrance we spotted fresh fire marks. Ashes bubbled, but by the entrance was empty liquor bottle and matches. Someone still cared. Contacting Cusco helped me find the family who owned it up to the 1920s. Engineer Abraham Secludo Mater lived in a little house in a district near the airport. He was a small, bright, alert man with dark, leathery skin, having something of the look of a Chinese emperor about him, and he was indeed an emperor. I am descended on my mother's side from the Insa Marta Capi, he said. Capi was one of the small lineage, was one of the last great Insa who faithfully died in the Great Plague shortly before Francisco Pizarro's conquest. Abraham Mason sadly never made final cut, so packed with revelations was the Peruvian film in our 2000 series Conquistadors, which I still regard as our most electrifying. But the footage has all been saved, and what of the future, you never know. Here's to future travels in time. And that concludes, thank you for tuning in, everyone. That concludes this week's edition of A Slice of History with the Butterfly Princess. Hope you can join me next week for next week's instalment. But until then, I'm going to sign off now. Until then, have a lovely rest of your week, and I will see you very soon. Bye-bye for now. Take care.